The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 87.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Also, of course, just a reminder that you can get your own official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt by going to sqpn.com/merch. It's available in various styles and sizes, and it encapsulates our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away. So definitely some cool t-shirts if you want to go check that out. Also, please share the podcast on your favorite social media, because we always want to find and encounter new listeners, and that is the easiest way for us to get out there and to get into the ears of those who would be interested in listening to us. So share the podcast, and also leave us a review on your favorite podcast player, because that also helps juice the algorithms so that we are seen by more people as well. So today we are going to be discussing the 14th episode of The Bad Batch, titled War Mantle, and joining me on the panel tonight is Angela Cialana.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello. It is just us two this evening, so we're going to talk about all things Gregor, apparently. So that was kind of fun. But before we jump into that, we do have kind of our new ham solo segment that I just wanted to touch on again. This is inspired by Mike Creevy, who had a really fun story to tell us and was unable to join us on the podcast. So stay tuned, because he's got some cool memorabilia story to share that he'll share next episode. But
what a tease.
I know, right. And he wouldn't even tell me what it was. Because I was asking him about it, because I wanted to know what name he used for his deli order this week. And the name that he had for his deli order this week was Mace Windu.
Nice.
So yeah, that's one we all know and love. And I know this isn't at all deli related, but I figured this is the only place in the show that's sort of appropriate for this. It's not related at all to the topic at hand, but it's Star Wars related. I got, and I'm showing Angela on the video, but a parishioner gave this to me after Mass. So it is it's a Star Wars VHS
original
notebook. So
notebook.
It is like a journal, but
cool.
But it's got the look and feel of a VHS tape, and it's got the original art for Star Wars even before it was A New Hope on the front, and it's even got the scrawl, the text of the opening words of the scrawl there on the back of it. And it was just funny because she gave it to me because she knows that I'm going to Galaxy's Edge in a couple weeks, and so she's a big Disney Star Wars fan as well. And it really confused me, because when I first saw it, it was like, I don't have a VCR. I can't play this. And turns out it's a fancy notebook. So,
very cool. Never seen that before.
I hadn't either. They're really hitting on the nostalgia, which it is kind of funny. In my collection, I do have still my VHS tapes from the original trilogy, even though I have no way of playing them at all. They're still hanging out on my in my bookshelf. So that being said, listeners, of course, this segment is meant to well, I guess showcase Mike's deli order, but also if you have any fun random stories of Star Wars in your daily life, we would like to hear about it. The kind of the gist of this would be if you have a name of a Star Wars character that you use when you order, a coffee from Starbucks or something, and you have a fun story there. We would like to hear that, and we would like to share that on the podcast. So if you have that kind of a story, you can tweet using the hashtag Ham Solo. So all one word, Ham Solo, not Han Solo, but Ham Solo, and we will pull those each week and share those on the podcast. So Star Wars in daily life, kind of a fun little segment. So that being said, we are going to now jump into the Bad Batch. So of course we start with Angela. What was your just first impressions of this episode?
Oh, well, besides realizing at the end that my jaw was still wide open.
Yep.
Wow, we got so much. I mean, so many ties between, what we know and love with the Bad Batch, and then with Camino and with Gregor, who we met in Rebels, I believe.
Yep.
Or Clone Wars.
Yep.
And just, the TKs, we got the TKs, stormtroopers. Wow. I mean, just so many things. And then for me, it was like, I think last week we talked about Lord of the Rings tie-ins. There was yet more Lord of the Rings allusions, I feel, in this episode. But we'll get to that. So I really enjoyed this episode. It was quite an arc when you think about everything that actually happened in this episode and what we learned. But I'm also wondering what's up with the last episode or so, that we got, and where does everything fit in, with what we saw this week versus what we saw before. So I've got a lot of questions. I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
Perfect. Yeah, I've got a few of my own, and we'll touch on that at the end of our discussion. This episode I feel is like it's like that the incline on a roller coaster. So like we've still got 2 episodes left, but we haven't hit the kind of the climax yet, but we're ramping up to it. And I should expect these things. I keep sort of looking at these episodes and the Bad Batch as sort of a sort of like self-contained stories in an episode. So when they leave us with a cliffhanger like this, it's really jarring for me. And I mean that in a good way. I mean it's got me very, very anxious for what's going to happen next, but it also was something that I didn't expect. I mean, I expected Tech to pull off some, piloting skills that just save the day, and so the fact that they left us with this cliffhanger is good. I mean, that's
cliffhanger for a while.
pun intended there. Yep. So yeah, this was a good one, and I'm anxious to see where this goes, and then to see where this all kind of comes back around in the next 2 episodes. So with that, we will then jump into the recap. We start off with seeing this clone trooper being chased down by Imperials on the planet Darrow. And he is eventually captured, and before he is captured, he does plant a distress beacon that is broadcasting. So at this point, who did you think it was, or did you have any inkling of who this might be?
I really didn't know. I mean, there's so many clones out there that are kind of unaccounted for, right? I mean, so I figured it was just one of those guys. I had no thought in my mind personally that it was Gregor, but I was definitely intrigued.
Yeah, so I sort of wondered. I don't know if Gregor popped in my head initially, but as we've been going through this whole season, I've been wondering if Gregor and Wolf were going to show up in some point, because they showed up in Rebels and there was a connection there. So I don't think I was able to call it that it was Gregor, but I was not surprised that it was Gregor, especially when he started kind of chuckling and laughing in his kind of demeanor. So he gets captured, and Clone Force 99 is on a mission for Sid when they receive this transmission from Rex, and Rex intercepted the distress beacon and is asking Hunter and the other clones to go recover him. And he calls Gregor an old friend, and Rex cannot go himself because he is currently busy, and so he wants Clone Force 99 to go instead. I thought this was an interesting little point. I'm wondering, so this is part of where I wonder where the next 2 episodes are going, because Rex was involved in something that we didn't see.
Right.
And I'm
he
wondering
looked like he
if
was in a lot of trouble.
Right. And that's what I was wondering, if his mission sort of, I don't know, somehow plays a role in where we go the next 2 episodes, because we sort of know he's basically kind of starting the rebellion, more or less. So I have no even inkling on what that might be, but the next little debate was actually a really kind of fun one. So they all debate on whether or not to go help this clone trooper, and Echo argues basically being loyal to Rex, that it must be that it must be urgent. So he's arguing for going to retrieve this Reg clone trooper. And Tech reminds them all that they are currently on a job for Sid, and if they don't complete the job, they won't get paid, and basically they will not be able to eat. So he is arguing from practicality.
Of course.
Yep. Oh, it was so definitely so in character. And then Omega, as we've kind of already talked about on the show, she sort of is this conscience character, and she argues out of the merit of friendship that they should go and retrieve this clone trooper. And she even makes the point that's more important than getting paid.
Yeah, and kind of alludes back to what she said previously about what a soldier really is someone who comes to help somebody else when they're in trouble. So yeah, I found that connection as well.
Well, and that even echoes back to our discussions on just the Clone Force 99 trying to figure out who they are. And they're not soldiers. And I mean, they're mercenaries sort of, but Omega's kind of shifted that perception that being a soldier for them now is not just following the orders of the Republic, but it's going to help those in need, as they've been doing with Hera and the Syndulas, and some of the other missions.
Right. She's kind of rooted them with compassion. I think they had a lot of heart in terms of passion, but I think the compassion is really what she's brought to their crew.
Yeah, and yeah, she gets to the heart of what's most important. And I liked that she said that it was more important than getting paid, because I mean getting paid is a good thing. I mean, you know, that we need that, but there are things in life that are worth more than just the next paycheck. And she was really hitting on the thing most important here is the friendship, the relationship, and that's more important than getting paid.
Yeah. If I could just riff on that real quick.
Sure.
Just this idea, something that came up for me in my life recently was this idea of having a mission, like a personal mission, a family mission. Like when you wake up in the morning, what is it that really guides your actions? Right. And so we have so many choices in our lives that we can, like we see right here, they have so many choices before them, and they're all like seemingly very important. So what is it that really is the crux, right? What is it? What is the thing that's going to be the decision maker? And when you have a mission, a personal mission, a team mission, a family mission, that can help you to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. I could totally jump off of that and almost share my homily from this morning.
Yeah.
And I'll share just a little bit. The homily and the gospel today on the 18th Sunday of Ordinary Time is Jesus referring to himself as the bread of life, and he says, do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life. Mm-hmm. And I made the point in my homily that we often pursue good things in this world, and they are good things. We pursue food, career, relationships, even material things. They're not bad, but often we pursue them as the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And they ultimately fade away no matter what it is. And they leave us empty, desiring more. And that, of course, is something that only God himself can fill in our hearts. And that's what Jesus was referring to as himself as the bread of life, and drawing people to him, and not just trying to convince the crowd that what they were really looking for was him, and not just the next loaf of bread that they would physically eat.
Wow. So this episode really ties into that. Like, she's literally saying, like, we have to choose compassion. We have to choose love for this person, like a concern for this person over the material stuff.
And what's interesting there is that they don't know the reg at all. They've never met Gregor. And there's this Echo, I think, kind of makes the argument for loyalty to Rex, and that he trusts Rex, and therefore they should do this. Tech, again, pursuing a good thing, getting paid, definitely a good thing. And then Omega, it's there's something deeper here that is more important than even Rex or getting paid. And it's that well, she mentions it as friendship, but I would say it's the relationship there is way more important. So
cool.
Way to go, Omega. So and Hunter is reluctantly convinced to follow in this plan, and so he they do head off to Darrow. We also then get a side kind of bar on Camino, and so we're starting to kind of see what's happening there. Admiral Rampart is nefarious as ever, and he's kind of overseeing the whole Operation War Mantle. I was going to mention this, and I don't think I did yet, but War Mantle, we may have mentioned on the show before, but actually the name originates from Rogue One.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a fun tie into Rogue One. So, and of course, War Mantle finally we know is the replacing of the clone troopers with recruits. So he's overseeing that operation, and we have Nala Se and Lama Su talking, and Lama Su informs Nala Se that the Empire has canceled all their contracts, and essentially he's assuming that the Empire is going to destroy them rather than let them at all work for anybody else and make any new clones. So he has Nala Se gather some people who are essential and prepare to depart Camino.
Yeah, I really liked his quote. We have empowered them to our own detriment. And it was sad. It was sad to hear that, because that's what happened, and that's kind of what happens throughout Star Wars in many different ways, that people end up getting tricked to help or to empower someone who ends up hurting them. So I found that very impactful. I think between that and even, we talked about Echo trusting Rex, some other examples I'll bring up later, but I really saw a theme of trust also in this episode, of who can you trust, and kind of making that decision to trust someone and how that impacts you.
Yeah. Well, and the Kaminoans are, it's an interesting sort of species and culture. And I mean, they're creating weapons essentially. I mean, and then they're selling them, the clones who are soldiers, you know, and it sort of is, if you just kind of look at the big picture, it's sort of just inevitable that this would happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're selling war machines, the only purpose of that is to increase, you know, war, and you know, those who buy from you are the ones then in power, and it's not the right kind of power. It's the well, and here it's the empire. It's that dictatorial power. And
yeah, that's interesting because, you know, they made that decision, I assume, to create the clones because they trusted that the Republic would be led in a moral, you know, upstanding kind of way, that democracy would prevail, you know, and here we are, right? So yeah, it's they're caught between a rock and a hard place, and initially they got into, as you say, you know, making weapons because they thought, hey, these are going to be used in a moral, upright way.
But that's just, I mean, that's the risk of any of this. I mean, that, you know, if weapons get into the wrong hands, it's over, you know. The criminals aren't going to care. Emperor Palpatine isn't going to care. It makes me wonder what their primary goal in cloning was pre-Master Sifo-Dyas. I'm butchered his name. Yeah. So I mean, when he commissioned them to do the Jango Fett clone for the Republic, I wonder what their clones were prior to then.
Well, we saw that they were testing on their own kind before, on that abandoned kind of outpost. So that's
maybe it was just more research than. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Either way, though, this is sort of the beginning of the end of Camino, and that becomes way more clear at the end of the episode. Sort of.
Right.
I think it's the end of Camino. It's not the end of the whole genetic scientist. Oh yeah. You know, that whole realm.
Well, we know that from The Mandalorian, right?
Right. Yep. And actually, I think that's where Nala Se potentially is a prefiguring of what's happening that we saw in The Mandalorian. Back on Daro, Clone Force 99 lands. They find the distress beacon, and they determine that this reg that they're searching for has already been captured. And so they go off to investigate, and Wrecker and Omega are ordered to stay back at the ship, and Hunter, Tech, and Echo infiltrate this mountain, which they come to find out is not just an ordinary mountain, but is actually an Imperial base.
And this is totally where I saw the Lord of the Rings connections because Hunter, you know, when he's looking at the ground and it's almost like the exact same motions that Aragorn does, where he's trying to track the hobbits that were captured by the orcs. So he's like, a hobbit lay here. He was dragged, you know, and he was bound and he was dragged. And so Hunter almost does the same thing and does the same motion, and the camera almost does the same type of thing. And then they come to a mountain and they have to climb up it. And once they're there, they see the enemy's encampment, right? And then there's something that flies overhead and they have to duck. So I found a lot of Lord of the Rings kind of connections there. I don't know if that's just because I always have that in the back of my mind and living in a little room somewhere, or because that was partially, you know, an influence.
And it could likely have been an influence on them.
Yeah.
So even, I mean, yeah, that is a fun parallel. So they do climb the mountain and look down and see all the enemies, and they see that they are upgraded in new armor, which was an interesting point. From what I was reading, this is armor that's based on an early concept art by Ralph McQuarrie. So that was kind of a fun way to bring in some of his concept art. But they're also, I mean, more or less, they're starting to shift towards Stormtrooper armor as we know it from the original trilogy. Hunter doesn't really want to go down there because this is changed from just a simple extraction to he doesn't even quite know what kind of trouble they're going to get into. And this was another kind of moment of conscience here, that Echo is the one who argues that they still need to go extract him because that's exactly what they did for him on Skago Minor. So that was Clone Wars season 7, correct? That was because that was right at the end of the Bad Batch, the first like 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Oh, that's right.
When the Bad Batch pull him out.
Yeah.
And he kind of joins the Bad Batch. Go watch that if you want a refresher on that story arc. So Hunter decides to go ahead and do this. Wrecker and Omega will stay on the ship as backup, and the other 3 will infiltrate the base. And they are able to kind of hop on this lift and go down into the base. And they find this security console, and Echo is able to try to determine the location of Gregor. He also pulls a muster report, which lists 50 clone commandos and 1,000 TK troopers. And this was a really cool moment. And I think, Angela, you had something to share there, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we got more of the traditional Star Wars soundscape, I guess you could say. We got the classic stormtrooper yells kind of coming in as the guys are, making their way through to Gregor. And then also, actually, when they are outside and they're noticing that the armor has been updated, we start to hear this theme that John Williams used in early on for the Empire in A New Hope. And that was before John Williams had actually written the Imperial March. So he had this music that kind of was the theme for the Empire. And it's very, I've always thought of it as very similar to Tchaikovsky's little sort of motif that makes us feel anxious, like there's something coming, that there's some kind of battle that's coming from the Nutcracker Suite when it's right after the Christmas party. If you're familiar with the Nutcracker, right after the Christmas party and before everyone kind of wakes up, the soldiers wake up, the Nutcracker wakes up. Depending on what version the rats or the mice wake up and have a battle. So that's an early Tchaikovsky theme. And actually, we don't really go into the music too much on this podcast, but kind of like, I guess, since we're talking secrets of Star Wars, like one of the behind the scenes things that happened when Star Wars was being created was that John Williams was given a whole bunch of really classic motifs, songs from classical music, from orchestral, catalogs, and these really famous composers. And he would basically, the George Lucas would cut the movie to these different songs. So it's called source music. And then from there, John Williams kind of gets the idea of what feel the scene should have, what George's vision was for how the audience should feel. And then John Williams would write something according to that. And so that's why, I bring up Tchaikovsky and all that stuff.
And it's interesting because I forget that even someone like John Williams would have pulled from someone else first. Because I'm sort of used to everybody looking at John Williams as like the master at this and then pulling from him. But this is something, of course, that, he would have drawn from other sources. And it does. I mean, the music, it carries with it such an emotional tie.
Yeah.
And when that particular motif came into the show, it was for me, it was clearly recognizable Imperial.
Yes.
So and I like how you described it. There's this like anxious sort of feel with it. It's you're meant to be kind of put off by it just a little bit because there's something nefarious there.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing about the TK troopers, just that TK-421 is kind of the most famous stormtrooper from A New Hope. So this is the first time now, I guess, in chronological Star Wars universe that the TKs have ever been implemented. And so the TK troopers are what we see in the original trilogy. And like I said, TK-421 is kind of the famous one. So they are able to determine Gregor's cell location, and they arrive at his cell and successfully break him out. And he turns out to be Gregor with his goofy sense of humor. So, and he was in Clone Wars. I haven't seen the episode, but from what I was just reading, he's in an episode where he was in a explosion and lost his memory and was just kind of working some sort of a day job and didn't realize that there was all these other clones like him out there. And so I don't know the whole story, but he showed up first in the Clone Wars. And then of course we saw him in a number of episodes in Rebels where Rex, Gregor, and Wolf were out sea or desert fishing.
Yeah.
So
what were those things called? Jupas or something like that?
Yeah, it's like the I don't know, the swordfish that, or the whale or whatever they're hunting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they use Zeb as bait.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh. So they rescue Gregor, and there are some cool kind of interactions with him that they're between him and Hunter as they're kind of trying to figure out who each other is. There's a cool little line here. Hunter tells Gregor that they are the CT-99 clones, so they're the defective clones.
Mm-hmm.
And Gregor chuckles and makes the comment that he says, "If you ask me, it's the ones who want to stay here that are really defective." So I appreciated that because I defective clone is, while it may be true on a kind of a biological or scientific kind of level, often they're not defective. You know, they're really, I mean, strong and they're great persons, and they're defective in the sense that they're not like the normal regular clones.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we can use those words, or even we use it towards ourselves. And this is what it kind of, where it kind of drives me nuts, is that sometimes we can say that interiorly about ourselves because we know our own inadequacies, or, for example, when I was in high school and bullied, I just thought something was wrong with me. And so like those kind of words stay with the person.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand where Hunter was coming from. I don't think he sees himself as defective, but I think it's just easier for him to talk to another clone and say, yeah, we're the defective ones. But he's not defective.
Point.
They're not defective. Yeah. They're different, but they're not defective. So
right.
But I all that to say is that's why I appreciated Gregor's comment that the defective ones were the ones who wanted to stay. So that the really defective ones were the ones who were going to participate in the evil of the Empire and didn't want to turn away from that.
Yeah.
And in that sense, that is a very apt description of sin. A defective moral compass, a defective conscience, a defective, whatever you want to describe it. So Hunter, you're not defective. So then they do attempt to escape, and Tech attempts to redirect the troopers so they can get out of their way, but things don't quite go so well because he's using his clone codes, but they're different than what the Empire is using, and so he triggers this security alert, and so they are attacked, and they do manage to take the troopers down. And Hunter grabs one of the commando's key cards, or the security access cards, which is important for just a little bit later.
And they're still stunning. They still got their blasters set to stun.
Yep.
This whole time.
That was exactly in my notes at this point, because they clearly are using just normal blaster bolts. But then every one from Clone Force 99 is a stun ray.
Mm-hmm.
So again, their moral compass is aligned correctly. I mean, even though the troopers are their enemy, they are not trying to kill them.
Right. And not only the enemy, but they're trying to harm them. You know, I mean, they're, like you said, they're using their regular blaster bolts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very admirable.
And then Gregor does at that point make the point that they notice that the troopers are not clones, but that they are the recruits. And that's part of this whole Project War Mantle replacements coming into play. So they continue to fight their way. They do get onto a lift, and they try to head to the top to escape. And that's where Hunter is able to use that authorization code that he stole. And Gregor does a little bit of explaining here about the replacements that are willing recruits from across the galaxy instead of clones, and that the recruits are swearing loyalty to the Empire. I liked how he points out that they are not as skilled as the clones.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was very intentional. That line was very intentionally written in by the writers.
Yeah. So I found that funny, of course, for one, because we're kind of on the clone side. And so, of course, we're going to think that the clones are better skilled. But then also just the whole stormtroopers have terrible aim kind of joke that plays over and over and over in all of Star Wars. So definitely a jab there. But what the Empire does have, even if they don't have the skill, they do have numbers. And so that does become a problem, because Hunter sort of scoffs at that. And then when the lift opens, they are overwhelmed by the numbers and have to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So they head back down to a lower level to reevaluate their plan. And then we get a break from the action, and we go back to the Havoc Marauder. And this is a fun scene between Omega and Wrecker. And so Wrecker is like feet on the console, like just kind of chilling and relaxing, and Omega is like pacing and anxious. And so she asked Wrecker why he's so relaxed. And I liked his comment. He's charging up before charging in.
I totally love that comment, because as I've mentioned previously on the show, I have an issue with anxiety. And so I'm very much like Omega, where I'm just like, I've got to find something to do. I've got to busy myself, and I think I'm going to, I intentionally wrote his line down. Like, I'm going to put this in my mind next time I know that I have to really like just rest before something, important happens. So,
yeah, I thought the same thing. I relate to Omega in that situation. I mean, even something like the hour leading up to the podcast, like my brain is working, and like I can't really sit still, and like there's no way that I could be like Wrecker and just be like just chill. So definitely before anything big, I can't relax. So I imagine some of our counterparts on the podcast might relate to Wrecker in that situation better than we can, but it's all good. Clone Force 99 continues to fight their way through the base, and they decide that their best option is to escape through the reactor conduits and the main reactor's exhaust port. The one downfall of that, pun intended, is that the exhaust port is halfway up the mountain, so they need a plan to escape without falling off the mountain. But at that point, Tech is confident that they would be able to contact Wrecker and Omega for a pickup, and they would be able to be rescued from the side of the mountain. So at that point, that's exactly kind of what happens. I assume that Omega must have memorized all the ship's specifications, because she's finally flying the Havoc Marauder.
Well, Tech doesn't know that she's flying it, does he? I mean, he's not on the ship until, you know, once he gets on the ship, he's like, all right, that's sufficient. My turn.
Yeah. Well, she did really well. I was impressed.
Oh yeah.
So, she definitely has been studying up, and so they call her and Wrecker, and they're able to kind of get close enough. And of course, the Imperial troopers have discovered them in the exhaust port, so they're confronting them. The Empire has also sent out ships, which becomes very clearly an issue for them. And so they are trying to rescue all of them from the side of the mountain. And yeah, Tech and Gregor are both able to jump on initially, and then Tech immediately takes control of the Havoc Marauder. And the fight continues. And throughout that, they're able to get back, and well, a number of things happen. One, it was there's a cool moment where they're in the ship fighting and getting hit, and the Havoc Marauder is losing power, and Gonki finally has his moment to shine.
Yeah, it was just like this great moment where I was like, wait, what does a gonk droid do again? Oh yeah, they're a power droid.
Yeah.
And because I don't know if we've ever actually seen a gonk droid being used in Star Wars.
I don't think so. The only other thing that I can remember is Wrecker using Gonki as a weight to lift.
Right.
But that is not his primary function. So yeah, Gonki kind of saves the day, gets the ship back in operation, and Tech is able to get the ship back to the mountain, where Echo is finally able to get on board, and Hunter attempts to jump on board and then is knocked away and he falls. But Hunter, being Hunter, I mean, he's got reflexes and can, I mean, his ability to sense things. I mean, he gets injured, obviously, but is able to kind of slow his descent enough that he doesn't land and die, but he hits the ground, and the Marauder isn't able to come back and land to pick him up. And this was the hardest part of the whole episode to watch, was Hunter ordering Tech to take the ship and leave, and knowing that he was going to get captured. And then even, I mean, Omega's distraught was very powerful, and it just, I mean, it pulled at my heartstrings, and I did not expect them to go this direction. And so it was that was
That's
tough
made
to
it
watch.
Great. Yeah. And you know, I have to say, I think it was very intentional that Tech was at the helm of the ship at this point in time, because I don't know if he even gave any hesitation. I didn't read it that way when he got the order and he put his hand on, you know, the gear shift or whatever it is, right. You know, and he went for it, you know, he followed the order. And we know that Tech is not really the emotional one of the bunch. He doesn't really think that way. That's just not the way his brain is wired. And so I think it was the best thing for all of them that he was able to just take that order immediately and go, because if they had just, you know, been arguing about it and no, we've got to do this, and well, yeah, isn't there some other way, that would have possibly cost them all their lives, or at least the ship. So I thought that was, definitely intentional on the part of the writers.
Yeah, and just back up just slightly. He does initially resist the order, because he makes the point that the odds of Hunter surviving are incredibly low.
Oh, that's true.
But
right.
I think you're absolutely right that after that comment, he could see the practicality of what needed to be done, and then there's no hesitation in following Hunter's order, where I think the others would have, I mean, Omega would have gotten captured too as she went back to rescue him.
Yeah, I believe the reason that I wrote that down was that initially Hunter, Hunter says, you need to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until he said that's an order that Tech actually went for it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, for him not being at least overtly emotional, I mean, this has to be tearing him up just as much as the others.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was well done for the story and the plot, but yes. Gosh, this is emotionally distraught for all of us.
And then we knew it was going to happen, right? Like we knew that Crosshair was waiting to get his hands on Clone Force 99. So
yeah, and that's where they left us. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm nervous because they could, but okay, never mind. I was going to say they could do to Hunter what they did to Crosshair, but they already removed Hunter's inhibitor chip, so they can't do that. But still, there's.
Could they put it back? Could they put a chip back inside of him?
Theoretically,
that would be horrific to watch.
That would be a drastic and intense and really tough next 2 episodes.
Yeah, I don't know if the Empire would actually go through with that. Like, would Rampart really want that to happen? I don't think so.
I suspect he is more looking to eliminate Clone Force 99 rather than convert them. I mean, I even think Crosshair is probably just a tool for him that, will get discarded eventually, because he has made it clear he is not a fan of the clone troopers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he tolerates Crosshair because of his abilities, but I think he would toss him at the first chance that he gets.
Yeah, so you got to wonder, what I couldn't help but think at the end of this episode, like, Hunter, I mean, we don't know. We have no evidence that Hunter and the other clone troopers, that we know survive to the rebellion and into the original trilogy era. We don't have any evidence of that. So I had to think to myself, is this the end? Is this going to be the end for Hunter?
What's great from a storytelling perspective is that is a very valid question. Because that raises the stakes, and we're going into the final 2 episodes and not knowing. I mean, Gregor is maybe the only one that we know that's going to survive because we know he's in Rebels, but every other character is up for grabs, and that adds an emotional weight to these episodes that should keep us at the edge of our seats. And I think from a storytelling perspective, that is fantastic. It's it's hard to go through it when we got to kind of wait and then see what happens, and then wait another week for the final episode. But it's good storytelling. I don't know. I hadn't even considered actually that they might not live. Another potential thought here. There's some online chatter potentially of people expecting maybe that in these final 2 episodes. So if they're going to start to try to pull in some of the other plot threads, at one point, even Thomas and I were wondering that maybe Eleni Syndulla would have died in the episodes that we saw her in, because we know she doesn't survive all the way to Rebels, but she didn't. So there is some online speculation that she potentially could be coming back in these episodes and meeting her demise. Not exactly the most uplifting thing I want to consider, but
well, I mean, is it going to be a happy ending to this series? I don't know. I don't have any reason to think that it will be a happy ending, to be honest with you.
I mean, it it can't be in some sense, because I mean this is the Empire really getting its grips into the galaxy, and it heads to a really dark time before the rebellion, you know, fully kind of gets its own feet in Star Wars Rebels. So I mean we're in this period of darkness in the galaxy. I mean, so the only like happy ending would be is like for them to survive and like go off into the unknown regions or something. But even that would be completely out of character. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm terrible at predictions, but I'm going to make a prediction. I think just based on the Star Wars stories that we have seen recently, I'm going to predict that Wrecker and Omega will survive. And, well, to the very end, I'll say this. Wrecker and Omega will somehow be together and towards the end. And Wrecker may possibly sacrifice himself so that Omega can live and get away and be somewhere safe.
I think that's a very plausible thing that we might see, because we have seen the relationship between those two in a particular way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to talk about it, but
right. Well, yeah. But I mean, there's I don't know. There's I'm wondering if there's more story to tell than just what the next 2 episodes can do. I mean, especially with Omega, because I mean, even at least from the story perspective, there's so much potential there, and we still don't really know. I mean, like what she's all about, and she doesn't even know.
Right.
So, I mean, even if there is a second season or more stories, I think they'll revolve around her more so than they would revolve around the Bad Batch.
And interestingly, we find out that Nala Se survives, right? Nala Se is, I guess, you know, harbored by the Empire or protected in some way. So maybe they connect somehow in the distant future.
Well, and we know that Nala Se was trying to get Omega back. I mean,
trying to protect her. Yeah.
It makes me wonder if Nala Se is the only Kaminoan to survive, or if there's like a group of kind of scientist Kaminoans that he pulled. Because Nala Se is it's implied that he was killed because he wasn't the scientist. I don't know. I guess I hope for more stories. And I want more of the Bad Batch. I want Bad Batch season 2 with the whole crew. But then the other big question too is what's going to happen with Crosshair?
Right.
Is he going to be redeemed somehow? Is he going to, I mean, or maybe is he even going to have the inner strength to overcome the inhibitor chip himself? Or, you know, what's going to happen there?
Right. I mean, have we actually seen Crosshair execute a fellow clone on screen, or has it been implied ever?
I know.
Because I know we've seen how good he is.
What wasn't no. Well, but I don't know. I don't know if a fellow clone. I know he's definitely. I'm remembering the episode where Crosshair was sent off to dispatch the rest of Saw Gerrera's team, and one of his fellow recruits wasn't comfortable with killing Crosshair. Crosshair kills him. I don't know if we've seen him kill another clone, but I think he would, because that's, I mean, he's looking, especially if the clone in question is considered a traitor in his mind.
I mean, we know he was definitely there's been some close calls. But I guess they kind of, like, at the end of this episode that we just watched, they kind of imply that, okay, it's just Hunter and Crosshair in a room, and what's going to happen is Hunter going to survive? Is he going to escape? Is Hunter going to somehow get to Crosshair, whether that's talking or whether that's some other means, so that Crosshair lets him go at least, or has some kind of crazy change of heart and mind. I don't know how that would happen, but so those are all, I guess, the possibilities, and we're kind of left to wonder how that would actually occur. To me, the most likely outcome is that Hunter doesn't make it out.
Yeah. I don't want to agree with you.
I'm being realistic here.
Right. I think I would say that I would agree with you, but I think he at least gets through the next episode.
Okay. What would be cool is if Tech somehow had created some device to like quickly, I don't know, like disable the chip in Crosshair just in case they ever got into like a certain range, like close enough to him to like actually turn it off or something. That would be neat.
Yeah. Oh, I just don't want to consider Hunter dead. Like that is a likely possibility. I don't know. I don't know if they would go there with this story, but but at the end of the day, I always have to kind of check myself, and that, I mean, a character shouldn't survive just because me as a fan want them to. Like, it needs to be what the story needs, not what I need.
Yeah. So now that you say that, I mean, I think about like Kanan Jarrus, for example. Oh, spoiler alert, sorry. Yep. But you know, he was given a worthy death.
Yep.
And I think, you know, if Hunter's going to go out, he's not just going to be like, you know, executed on a table or something. Right. I think he's going to go out fighting, whether that's, you know, trying to convince Crosshair to, you know, change his ways, or, you know, whatever it is. He's going to go out in a way that will make us all proud if he does, you know, leave us. So.
Well, and he's already shown that, because even by ordering Tech to leave, I mean, he was sacrificing himself to protect his family.
Exactly.
So yeah, that is Hunter through and through, the leader, and he's gonna be the one to jump on the grenade for his squad.
So I guess to me that kind of brings it back to the theme of trust, maybe to like leave this conversation on like a happier note, I guess. And to think about, you know, how Echo said, I trust Rex, and Gregor made the decision like, okay, like, you guys know Rex, I will trust you. And just the Clone Force 99 trusting each other to be able to accomplish this mission that, you know, they all gave their reasons. You know, Echo gave his reasons, Omega gave her reasons, like, we need to do this. And we saw that trust finally, you know, with Tech following that order, right? And so to go back to like kind of how I tied it into like daily life is, you know, back to the mission idea. You know, you've got your mission, but then you also have to trust the people that you're working with. And especially in those moments where it's scary, where it's a new situation, where it's really like frightening, emotional, you know, whatever it is, that it's so important to know who you can trust and to have those people that you can go to really say, you know, I trust this person. I don't know what to think or what to do right now, but, you know, I will listen to what your advice is for me. And, you know, for me, that is, you know, that my spouse, you know, that's family members, that's my spiritual director, my pastor, you know, those people, those good friends that you have that that are, you know, morally, you can rely on them. So I think that's, I think a positive, you know, takeaway that we can take into our lives from this episode is like all these people that we saw in this episode were in this really like stressful, difficult situation, all these different choices they had to make. And, you know, especially at the end with Omega just being really distraught, but she had to ultimately, I think she's going to have to come to the conclusion, like, I have to trust Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this was really a tough decision, he made the right decision for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do the same thing. We have to identify those people in our lives, and be able to say, you know what, if I get into a scary situation, a stressful situation, a confusing situation, I can go to these people and I can trust them.
Well said. And that is definitely a good note to end on. Good advice for us all. With that, I think, did you have any other final comments?
Just one little cute thing that we didn't really mention at the very, very beginning, where Hunter's kind of playing with his knife, and then Omega has that little tool where she is she's working on the ship, and then she sees what he's doing, and she kind of takes, it's like a scalpel or something, and she takes it and she kind of plays with it the same way. It's just very an endearing kind of I don't know, now that I look back on it, it tugs at my heartstrings, but yeah, just how she looks up to him as a big brother.
Yeah, well, hopefully we see them reunited in some way, in a positive way, in the next 2 episodes. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
We'll see.
So that is it from us, listeners. What did you think of this episode of The Bad Batch? We definitely would love to hear your thoughts. And so you can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, or you can comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or you can tweet at us, and we're on Twitter at SQPN. And now we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including David H., Jordan B., Eddie S., Robert R., and Pamela G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by going to sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, please make sure that you are subscribed to the show so you don't miss a single episode. You can find us in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast players. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search for the SQPN YouTube channel and be sure to hit that bell to get notifications of new episodes. And finally, you can find all of our previous episodes by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back next week as we will take a deeper look into episode 15 of The Bad Batch. So until then, Angela Ciolana, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It has. And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.